G'day Bomber fans. Yeah, that was a fun Saturday twilight game of footy. The Bombers were smashed by Geelong, 95 points in the end. I knew it'd be bad. I didn't think it'd be quite that bad. Yeah, apologies for the late upload. I'm pretty crook, so I've been sleeping most of the day. I don't know how I'm going to go for, player ratings and even the VFL recap. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, let's just get into this video. Remember to leave your votes down in the comments below. Okay, recap. The first quarter, there was just a clear quality and size difference from the get-go. You could tell. I thought we held up all right for the most part, but unfortunately Geelong were just too good and made moments count. They made us pay for our mistakes in the defensive half. They applied really good heat. Cameron got off the leash. Neil got off the leash. It went as expected, really. I thought we saw some nice moments, some good goals, and I didn't even think we played that badly, but we were just clearly being outplayed by a much better team. They led by 23 points. The second, it was looking ominous early. I thought this is where the floodgates would open. Jezza kicked 2 goals in, I think, like 3 minutes. But to be fair, I thought there was a bit of a fight back, and we wrestled back into the contest. Got some momentum. I said in my preview I was interested to see how we go when the game's in the balance, and it was pretty even for most of that second quarter. I think after the 3-minute mark, it was a goal each. Brad Close kicked 1, Mac Welfie picked up his second. We went down into halftime down by 35 points. Clearly the poorer team, but I thought there were at least some promising signs. The third was probably the most exciting quarter, at least for neutrals. There were goals. We kicked 5, the Cats kicked 7. It was pretty even again. There were some really nice highlights. Kako kicking, breaking his drought. Archie Roberts hitting the scoreboard. Peter Wright nailing 2 goals. We trailed by almost 50 at 3/4 time, but you could at least tell that we were having a real crack. At 3/4 time, I was feeling, if the game ended at 3/4 time, I was content. But yeah, unfortunately, there's 4 quarters in a game of footy, and the fourth was just, a humiliation. It was really bad. It was. I'm okay with a big loss if we give it a crack, and I thought for 3 quarters we did, but then that fourth was just, I don't think that really reflects the way the game was playing out. It made us look so much worse than I think what we probably were for most of the game. Yeah, it was bad. It was crap. The leaders were all over the place. We looked clueless against such a strong Geelong team. They were toying with us. They were ruthless, Geelong. They scored 47 points to 1 in that quarter, running out 95-point winners in the end. So, yeah, let's talk about this game. Yeah, so before the game, in my preview, I said that we were going to get belted. You look at the 2 lists, and it doesn't take a genius to know that it would probably be bad. There was just a difference in quality. What I was looking out for was how the Bombers control the controllables. I was fully aware that it was probably going to be a big loss. The Cats would win with ease. But there were things that we could control that I don't think we did. And I'll talk about the uncontrollables in a bit too to cut us some slack. But on the controllables, the things that, we probably, the areas we should have been better in, I thought the midfield, there was some stat padding, there was some good contest work, even some of our best players on the day, I thought were really poor with their running capabilities, and I guess that's not really something you can be too harsh on if that's not a strength in their game. Maybe it's just proof that, the club needs more good runners in there and probably needs to maybe rid of a few that aren't two-way runners. But I thought Holmes and Smith absolutely killed us around the ground. Their running power is crazy, and we were shown that we don't have the running capabilities needed to run with a team like Geelong. As I said, there were some good performances, there was some good contest work. We won clearances, we dominated stoppage clearances, but I thought our midfield overall was taught a bit of a lesson and took a huge belting, and it shouldn't have. Durham is an important player. Him missing is obviously not great, but he's not the be-all and end-all. Like that area of the ground for me, the engine room, that has no excuses for a poor or as poor a performance as we saw. Our backline is so under the pump as it is. They would have to be filthy with some of the efforts up the ground from the midfielders, especially late in the game when heads dropped. Ball use, it was pretty horrific at times. And to be fair, I'll cut the tiniest amount of slack because out of the back half, we've lost a lot of class through injury. Usually it would be Ridley, Redmond and Reed as the main distributors. Now we're relying on Jackson Pryor, Zach Johnson and Archie Roberts. Great learning experience for them, and I don't even really think they were, a huge issue. But I just think as a whole, the team really lacked polish and class, and I get why the ball wasn't being moved up the field. And I understand the directive to go by hand a lot. We were protecting the air and avoiding dump kicks to Tom Stewart. But yeah, and especially if your key forwards aren't competing like they weren't. So yeah, I understand the directive and the play style. I don't think it was the hand pass game that really killed us. I thought we just made too many errors by foot. And the issue is Geelong are too good to let you off the hook for errors in your forward half. I don't know how many points they scored from turnover. It would have been a lot, and I think a lot of them would have been in the forward half as well. And it just hurts when you have senior players like Martin, Merritt, McGrath, turning the ball over in dangerous areas, Dersmer as well. It wasn't Johnson, doing the damage by foot and turning it over. It was senior players making poor decisions a lot of the time. I think we were trying to be too cheeky, trusting junior players who we probably should have taken an easier approach. Players not being on the same page was a big one, especially late in the game. There was just a lack of synergy. Our efficiency on paper wasn't actually that bad, but yeah, because, I don't know, we would either, when we had the ball in our defensive half, we would either turn it over or, if we were lucky, force a stoppage, and that would have been after about 20 seconds of sideways kicking. I can't remember too many times where we actually moved the ball from D50 to forward 50. Like, you could probably count it on maybe one or two hands. And I understand, like, that I'm not angry about. That was always going to be the case. We just, we've lost all our class out of the back half. We're either going to, make ourselves horrid in the midfield by taking out Merritt and Martin and putting them in defence, or we're going to make ourselves poor the other way. Like, there's just not a lot we can do. But what I was expecting was at least solid ball use in areas that require cleanliness. Like, I wasn't expecting incredible chains, but I was expecting a lot more than what we actually did get, which was often just needless and costly turnovers in our back half. And you got a feel for the back six again, and the debutants. Archer May down one end never has a look at the footy. Blackiston down the other is having too many looks at the footy. I spoke about our leaders before, but yeah, there were some down days. Merritt, I thought, was really poor up until half time. He did lift. McGrath was probably the opposite. He pocketed Tyson Sengel and then had a bit of a mare late in that last quarter. Martin, some good moments, but turned the footy over a lot. Dersmer the same. I'm not picking on these guys. Like, there were more. I could, I'm not going to really go into detail on Gresham and Parrish, and that's more because I don't really see the need to, because for me, this is a game about our future, and I don't know where those two players really sit in terms of our future list build. You guys go crazy in the comments with that there. I don't know where those two are at for the future. But the other four, Martin, Merritt, Dersmer and McGrath, I think they're going to be with us for the next few years. And it would be weird if they're not. And I thought that those are the guys that I want to see lift in games like this, because they're our leaders, and we're such a young team. We need our leaders to stand up, and I don't think they were really at their best. They probably weren't horrible, but they weren't good by their standards, and unfortunately we need them to be when we've got a team this young and inexperienced. We need our best players and our most experienced players to be, at their standard if we want this game to be a close or a decent one, because I thought our best players were guys that, they were stopgap players. They were, players exceeding expectations. You'll see in my votes. But yeah, I think, those guys were good in patches, but I think everyone lowered their colours a little bit, and there weren't too many senior players that can really hold their head high and say they had a solid four-quarter performance, which is really not good when you're coming up against a team, so consistent. And just on the uncontrollables, so obviously there are plenty of injuries. We're very young. I think I heard that we had 8 players under 20. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I like the debutants. It is good to get games into them. I think this is valuable experience, but it is clear that some of them are not really ready for a game like this, and that's not an issue for the individual. Day Wicks, for example, I really like him. I think he's going to be a crafty player in the future, but I don't think he's ready to be playing against Geelong, especially when everyone around him is, at a similar age or similar level of experience. Lockie Blackiston, I thought he did some okay things, but he's a ruckman playing his second game as a key defender. He's trying his best. Archer May, he was same with Blackiston. These guys were playing waffle footy 2 weeks ago. Now they're having to play against Geelong on the MCG. Lawan Lawal on the wing, he was having to compete with Mark Blixarves in the air, and if it wasn't Mark Blixarves, it was Ollie Dempsey, and this is his second game. Many wouldn't have even thought he would play a game this year. Angus Clark was playing on Jeremy Cameron. Like, there are just things like that, you know. There were so many matchups that we just did not really have control over in this game. And that's, you know, one or two in a game, that does happen with teams. You know, the young players do play footy regularly, but when you've got so many players in mismatches around the ground, it makes it pretty much impossible to get any control over a game. There's less you can do, there's less options that you have, and it kind of goes without saying when you look at both lineups, but, you know, it was usually when we play the Cats, they make it look like men against boys, but this game was men against boys. And it's a good lesson for those who go in the comments and say that we should drop all our senior players and play every debutant that we can. I don't think, you know, Essendon will ever have a team as inexperienced and young and weak as this. We get reinforcements back after the bye, thankfully. We need them back soon. But yeah, this is just what happens when you play the kids sometimes. But realistically, people are going to condemn the leaders, and I agree that, you know, those are the guys that should be taking the criticism. They deserve it. They should be better. But I think you could clearly see that the main issue was that there were just some kids not quite ready for a game like this, or some players that were being played in roles that they shouldn't be playing in. Whereas Geelong, they had guys like Ollie Henry on the emergencies. Like, they're absolutely stacked, that team. Realistically, how many of the players in that Essendon 23 are in our best team if we're fully fit? All right, plenty will be in the future, I agree, but I think we're missing almost half of our best 23 out there. And when you're a young team, you know, who many were talking about finishing bottom 4 to start the year, when you factor that in, it's obviously going to be pretty bad. All right, so I think the loss, I have no problems with the loss. I went in expecting a big loss because of the difference in quality where we're at compared to Geelong. Unfortunately, you know, we would ideally be playing players where they should play and playing players that are, you know, ready to play. But unfortunately, we've got young guys who should be playing in different roles or in the VFL, and they're having to play. I guess being thrown in the deep end here, which is good experience, but yeah, not great in a game like this. We should go through some positives. Zach Johnson, he's in his third game, and he's being trusted so much to distribute by foot. And, you know, part of that is because we don't really have anyone else back there. But also it's because he's just a really good kick. It's not surprising either. Like, we knew that he was going to be a good player for us, but it is good to see him actually look ready. And I don't know how he would come out of the team for the rest of the year. Like, I think he's one of these players, kind of like Archie Roberts, who comes into the team and just stays there, and that's really valuable, you know, because we're talking about Archie Roberts as a ready-made player already. Like, he's probably one of our youngest, but for me, I've got his expectations in this game were probably the highest. Well, not the highest, obviously, but up there in the top, like, 7 or 8 players. But yeah, good to see Johnson lift. I thought that there were some defensive mismatches which early were at least halved. Like, I thought Pryor's efforts in the first half were really strong, playing on Dangerfield. Blackiston had some really good moments in the air, but also some got lost a bit. By the end of the game, the Cats did just get a hold of us. I thought McGrath on Stengel was really strong as well early. But there were at least times where we held them. I thought Roberts was good again. He just looks like a player already. Same with Johnson. It's just good to have these guys who are, you know, going to be long-term players, but also they're ready to play. Kako, I thought, played his best game in a long time, and it was good to see him hit the scoreboard. Even, you know, moments from May on debut, I liked that defensive spoil. Like, he didn't do lots, and I don't even really think he was ready to play. But there were signs, and it's not really a positive because we were still getting smashed. But I think that if you end that game at 3/4 time, or if we go and lose that last quarter by 20 odd points like we did with the first 3, I don't know. I just feel like I'd be happier, you know, because I think we were having a real crack, and I think the main difference was just the list and the quality. And then by the end of the game, we lower our heads and dish up a horrific fourth quarter effort. I think the first 3 quarters, I think most people probably would have been content by. Like, you can pin that down to the circumstances surrounding the team and how depleted and dysfunctional by nature we were. But unfortunately, by the end of it, it was really ugly and really poor. And even for a team that's inexperienced, I think you can be content with the first 3 quarters, but if you're anything other than disgusted by that last quarter, you got to have a little think about standards. Look, all in all, just a poor result. I knew that it would be a belting. I didn't think it would be close to 100 points, especially after 3-quarter time. I think for most of the game, or not most of it, maybe half the game, we were competing really hard. For 3 quarters, we gave it a real crack. We were obviously not the better team out there. I don't think we were ever the better team out there. I think the Cats were just too good a team to be half-assed with in patches, and they really made us pay. And we were poor in quite a few patches, especially late in the game. It's obviously a flat feeling. You don't want to lose a game of footy, and you don't want to lose big. But if I'm being honest, this is the biggest loss of the year in terms of margin, but it's not the worst loss we've had. I honestly preferred what I saw here over the Adelaide game in round 2. That loss was miles worse for me, which is weird because the margin wasn't even close. But yeah, as bad as it is, this loss doesn't really cause me to panic and reassess anything with the direction of the club. It's changed my perspective on certain individuals and whether or not they are the right fit for our future. And I think we're already seeing that with players dropped in the VFL that could 100% have played in this game. And I think there'll be more of that to come in the back half of the year. I think Rose is probably going to be pretty ruthless with a few things in the off season. But yeah, as for the club, I said that there was going to be another Bulldogs type loss eventually, and of course it was the Cats who were going to give it to us. They're the best team we've played this year, I think. They're more Collingwood, and the way I look at it, I think if we're fully fit, the Cats still beat us pretty easily. There's just a gap. I think Scott said that even fully fit, there is a gap with these two teams. Maybe not 95 points, but they are just on another level in terms of list build. They are challenging for a flag. We are rebuilding, and then you pair that with the availability. My heart's telling me to be scared and angry about a 95-point loss, but then my head's reminding me about where we're at, what we're building, who's playing, how just inexperienced we are, and these guys that really shouldn't be playing against Geelong, and how many of them were playing. Again, it's not like we had 2 or 3 players out there that maybe aren't up to the pace yet. They will be eventually, but they're not up to the pace yet. We had, I don't know, so we had maybe 5 or 6 players fully ready for a game, I think, this game at least, and then there were probably 10 others that are in development mode. They are young and improving, and they'll be good in a few years, but they're obviously not complete now. And then the rest are just stopgaps while we recover from injuries. A lot of these players that played today probably won't be there in a few years. So yeah, I mean, not an ideal result. We shouldn't have lost by this much, but I'm not surprised that we did. We switched off against a much better team, a really good team, and we paid the price. Just not a good game of footy. Alrighty, votes so I can bloody get a nap in. Tough week for it. We'll go 1 vote to Archie Roberts. He made plenty of mistakes, but so did everyone else. I thought he gave it a crack. 2 votes to Old Gold, his best game of the year. And this is one of the stopgaps that I'm talking about. This guy's not going to be with us in 3 years, but we're forced to play him because of injuries. And 3 votes to Will Setterfield. He has, silver lining out of this game is Will Setterfield and just his season, because I thought he was done at the start of the year. I would have had him guessed he was going to be delisted, but I think we got to, persist with him, and he's probably doing better than some other midfielders in there at the moment. So good stuff from Setterfield. He wasn't perfect. I don't think he ran with Holmes and Smith too well, but he gave it a crack, which I loved. My role player is Mac Guelphy. He was, trying to take Stewart out of the game. Didn't really work, but I loved his effort and work rate, and his ground ball game was awesome as well. Yeah, tough week for votes. Just tough week in general. Not a fun weekend. I'm going to go to sleep, I think. I haven't even been talking that long, and it has sapped all the energy out of me. I don't know how I'm going to go with a player ratings video. I'll try and get a VFL video. Maybe not tomorrow. I don't know how I'll be then. Who knows? Anyway, that's all. Cheers for watching, Bomber fans. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, and go Bombers.